so let me just start. So I'll start by sharing with you, this is our framework that we've developed. We haven't really talked so much about this framework because this is more for HR purposes, but there has a lot of benefits to it as well to managing crisis on social media. Right beyond who's staring at a naked guy on your screen. Okay, so I'll start by sharing like why is crisis management so important. So there are a couple of case studies that have happened over the last few years. So one which I think many of us here in Singapore would be familiar with is the Amy Cheong case study. And for our friends in the Philippines who are not aware of this, so Amy Cheong is an assistant director at NTUC, NTUC being one of our clients as well. About 2 years ago, she actually went to, she lives in an apartment on the second floor, and in Singapore, we have a couple races, right? We have Malay, Indian, Chinese, and Eurasians. So the Malays, they typically hold their weddings at the first level of the government apartments in Singapore. And they'll start creating a lot of like rah-rah noise because they're celebrating, right? It's a wedding. But so happened that this Amy over here, on a Sunday afternoon, she was really frustrated with the noise because she couldn't enjoy the peacefulness in her house. So she started putting up like racist remarks on her own Facebook, saying things like why do Malays have to do their weddings on the first floor? We call it the void deck here. So why do Malays have to do their weddings on the void deck? Why can't you just get a restaurant to do all these weddings? So it's very, very racist. And eventually what happened was somebody took screenshots of that, sent it to the media, and then it started a whole uproar in the social media space, saying like how can someone be so racist in Singapore, and we are living in the 21st century, you can't learn to live like peacefully and all those. So this started like people started backlashing because she worked for NTUC as well. So this created a backlash on the brand, and it started damaging the brand's reputation as well. And today what I'll be sharing with you is really when things like these happen, and things like these do happen, like what Norman has shared for the negative feedback on Star Vista, you see, it's really not a social media problem, but it's really like something has happened in the offline experience that has caused people to send in the negative feedback on social media. And if we don't respond it properly and in time, these are the kind of consequences that will come about. So this a company actually went to do research on this and what's the cost of a social media disaster. You can see if it's a listed company, it will cost reduced stock price, there will be litigation costs, there will be direct costs, and there will be damaged brand costs. So if you just factor in all the costs together, it will be easily around, it looks like it's around 3 million or 2 over million dollars worth of damage reputation that you need to resolve from there if you don't manage it in time. And the thing about social media is that crises are rising year after year. As you can see in this chart over here, the latest information that we have is only up to 2011, but you can see that crises continuously happen over and over again, and it's going to rise as more people get onto social media. So although most of us here are aware not to post, like we have to be very sensitive of what we post, many at times people still just continue posting what they feel emotionally on their social media profiles, and this will spark crisis. So I'll skip the first couple of parts, but our framework over here of how we manage such crisis, we call it the 3A crisis response model. Be all ready, that's step number 1. Step number 2 is be alert, and step number 3 is be active. So when a crisis happens, this is where you start working on the third A, be active. So there are 8 steps to do over here. So in today's very brief session, I'll just be covering the last part, which are the 8 to-dos of when a crisis really happens. Well, I've noticed our presentation has a lot of testimonials. Man, we really just put it in your face everywhere. Okay.
Just in case they never see.
Okay, so step number one. So first thing, anytime we receive a negative feedback is to acknowledge, and that's what just now when Norman asked everybody to just like how you respond, most of us have done it really, really well in your own words. So that's great, right? So that's acknowledge. So the purpose of acknowledge, you don't need the client's response to this, or rather approval to this. When you see any negative feedback, the very first thing you should reply is just to say, hey, I'm sorry this has happened, but we know and we are going to investigate into this. You see, because if you don't do this, and if you just like see the negative feedback and forward it to your clients, as an angry customer, I will feel that, hey, nobody replies to my messages, I'm just going to complain to all my friends, and then that's where a whole uproar will just begin from there if you don't reply on time. So just by saying we acknowledge, we know it, that really helps, like just calm the angst down already. Sorry, I'm noticing echo. Okay, no problem, thanks. So first step is acknowledge. And then the second step is to fight social media fire with social media water. So although we know this as like it's really common knowledge to us, right? But a lot of times, what we notice from other brands, or at least in my research, what I've noticed is that sometimes even on there's negative feedback on Facebook, there are some brands who actually reply on YouTube. So this particular case study over here, it's a FMCG brand. They sell themselves as I think organic granola in the US. But what actually happened was that there is this particular customer who realized that they started using genetically modified stuff in their ingredients. So as a customer, I will feel like, hey, this brand has been lying to me all this time. So what the customer actually did was to paste this message over here that says, where's my kashi? Basically, it's just saying that you guys have put genetically modified stuff inside the ingredients inside your products, and you've been lying to us. And another customer actually walked past and take a photo of this and uploaded it on Facebook, and that triggered 11,000 Facebook shares. Unfortunately, what happened after that was the brand actually replied via a YouTube message by saying, oh, we are sorry and all this. And what's even worse was that it was so obvious that she was reading from a script that the very first reply on YouTube was this. This guy just said she's so obviously reading a script and feeling uncomfortable. And that's the last thing you want to do, right? Anyway, that's beside the point. The point that I'm trying to drive across over here is that if you notice there's a negative feedback on a particular social media platform, it is important that you reply on that platform itself. Although it's common knowledge to us, but as you can see, there are some other brands that's just replying through other platforms, which is not really right in the very first place. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is where we need to move fast when there's a negative feedback. So here's a story of KFC. So what actually happened was that we're all familiar with KFC. And in Malaysia, there was actually a video taken of kitchen staff tampering with the food in KFC kitchen. So I think they were just playing around with the chicken, or they were messing around, they were throwing the chicken around in the kitchen or something like that. And somebody took a video of it and uploaded it on YouTube. Hours later, that whole video went viral. People started talking about it, and people started saying, is this really happening to my food and all that? And what the director of restaurant operations of KFC Malaysia did was that very quickly he came out with a YouTube response by saying he acknowledged it. Right? He fights social media fire with social media water because it was a YouTube viral video, and it was also they replied via YouTube as well, and they pushed it out on their Facebook page and everywhere else as well. And what he really just said was, we're sorry, and in this video he just said what are the conclusions and what are the actions to be taken, that KFC has taken to make sure that this will never happen again. So this is where, in step 3, this is where you want to be fast. You want to get our clients' contact to call their managers and say, can we get somebody of your senior management to respond to this? And if you can do that, then as a customer, angry customer, you will really feel taken care of, because things move quickly. And of course, this was one of the messages that KFC Malaysia has said. I think four of the most important words in the social media space is thank you and I'm sorry. And although a couple of lawyers would disagree with me over here, because by saying I'm sorry, it's an admission of guilt. But when you say it on social media, it has a whole different slant to it. I'm sorry doesn't mean you're really at fault, but what you're really showing is that you're showing empathy. And this is really what you need on social media, because we're all social creatures at the end of the day. If we can demonstrate that we empathize through social media, you can really close the crisis to a much contained one, rather than like huge uproar as to what happened to Amy Cheong. So when we say be sorry, I want to take this one step further by saying we're really, like, be sorry as in be really sorry. This is more within the organization itself. So here's another case study. Some of you may find Applebee's familiar, so I'm not sure if that's in the Philippines, but we don't have it in Singapore, but it's actually a chain of restaurant outlets in the US. So what happened was, in this bill over here, you can see the amount of the bill cost $34.93 and tip was 18%. So one of the customers actually wrote in here that I give God 10%. Why do you get 18%? So when she wrote that, the staff took a photo of this and she uploaded it on some social bookmarking site that said, "My mistake, sir. I'm sure Jesus will pay for my rent and groceries." So boom, a whole huge uproar because of this. And what Applebee said after that was that we wish this hasn't happened. They really, in essence, they just said, "I'm sorry, our franchisee has apologized to the guests and taken disciplinary action with the team member for violating their guests' right to privacy." So okay, they said they're sorry here, right? But then comes like a couple days after, what actually happened was that a happy customer at Applebee went to leave a happy feedback on their restaurant over here. So as you can see, they said sorry because they violated the guest's right to privacy. But over here, although it's a positive feedback, you can see that it's violating the guest's right to privacy as well. So it's really like shooting themselves in the foot over here, right? Even though they just want to shout about testimonials and all that, but do they really have the right to privacy over here? Did they really ask for permission? On the looks of it, as I was doing my research, it seems that they didn't. And this created another social media uproar of the brand, and that created, I don't know how much loss in damaged brand, cost, reduced stock price, and all those. So once you said you're sorry, step number 4 is to create what we call a crisis fact sheet. So this again is one suggestion you may want to propose to your client once the crisis gets really bad. So for small little issues, like the Star Vista one, it's just better to acknowledge it, say we're sorry, and then handle it offline. But if it gets bigger and bigger, step number 4, what you should be looking at is to create a crisis fact sheet. Basically, it's a simple microsite which contains all the facts of what has happened, giving updates and all these things. So recently we noticed this happened with MH370 as well. Right, and we still don't know what's the conclusion. We still don't know what's the outcome. I think the only latest news that we got from that is that somebody's making a whole movie out of it, which is totally ridiculous. But I think what Malaysia Airlines could have done is that they could have created a simple microsite over here containing all the information, and like maybe hourly updates, or every 12 hours they shoot an update either from the CEO or from the senior management on what actually has happened, what they have investigated, and what they are allowed to share. So this would allow like the media to report about it. At least the families of the MH370 passengers can be well taken care of, and they will at least know that they're doing something, and they can get live updates from there. And that is what is nice of BP has done. I believe this was done during their oil spill or something like that. So what should a crisis FAQ include? Of course, acknowledgement, details about the occurrence, photos, how the company found out about this, who was alerted, specific actions taken, and all this. Okay. And once you've done that, the next step, what you should be doing is to build a pressure relief valve. Because when people are angry, they just want to vent their anger out. And you want to give them a platform which you control to vent their anger out. And I think Penn State has done this really well. What they've just said is that we understand the strong feelings many people wish to express. That means they're saying, we're sorry, we know you feel angry. And as with all posts, they stand as long as they follow page policies. We do ask, however, that you remember profanity, spam, and attacks on other posters will need to be deleted. And there was a whole crisis that created from this, and they just created this little platform over here. It's just a Facebook post, pure text, and ask people to vent their anger over here. It may be counterintuitive for a lot of brands, but it's good in a way because people can vent their space, and it's controlled. You control this Facebook page. And the last thing you want happen is, another testimonial. The last thing you want happen is that you don't want your fans to create their own Facebook pages and vent their anger from there. Because if they create their own Facebook pages, you do not control it, and that becomes far worse. Case in point was SMRT. So SMRT is what do you call SMRT? Transport company.
Public transport.
Yeah, public transport operator in Singapore, right? Just like similar in the Philippines, but in Singapore we have two of them, SBS and SMRT. So SMRT, over the last couple of years, they have very, very bad reputation for their train breakdowns, and right now it's become a common excuse for a lot of people coming late for work as well. But every time the train is late, they start expressing their angst on social media. And because SMRT don't respond to that, what actually happened, I believe Julie has shared that before in one of her training sessions, was that somebody actually went to create their own Facebook page called SMRT Feedback. And that has actually gotten more fans than SMRT's social media presence combined, I think.
What is that? I think people believe that that's the real one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's true as well. People believe that it was the real one, and then they started sending in messages like, "Dear SMRT, can I just feedback to you that your train is very slow," and all that. And then because SMRT don't control that platform, it's just some random kid on the block. We don't know who that guy is. He just replied, "No, go screw yourself," or something like that. It's hilarious to read it, but as a customer, as a brand, you really feel that it's like you can't control it. And by building a pressure relief valve over here, you control this space, and you set the context right? You said, remember that profanity, spam, or attacks on other posters will need to be deleted. So that's good. So then step 6 is again another suggestion. This is more for the account manager side, so Kim, you may want to take note of this, is digital reputation management. Because even up till now, as you can see, earlier on I talked about a story of Amy Cheong giving that racist remark. The whole media started talking about it. The whole social media had a whole uproar on Amy Cheong and NTUC, the company that she worked in. And even up to today, when you Google Amy Cheong, you get all like her racist remark, and this has a very negative effect on the brand. And what you can do as a brand right now is that you can control this space by, there's a few methods that you can do to try to bring down these posts over here. And that's what, as an additional service offering, we can provide that as well. Step number 7, this is again more for the brand side, more for the account managers to take note, is that every time you have a crisis, it's important to document every element down. So create what we call a crisis portfolio. Make copies of all the tweets, the status updates, all the comments, because in future, this may happen again, but it can be a future case study for our team and the client's team to understand how to respond to this in future, because crisis is still going to happen and we can never prevent crisis from happening. But what we can do is that we can always ensure how we respond to it so that the crisis is contained, and instead of a crisis being bad, we can turn it into an opportunity for brands for target market, the market out there, to become brand advocates. So once all these steps are, once you've learned our lessons, we have to communicate internally, and that's the last step, and that is the 3A crisis response model. Is be all ready, be all alert, which I haven't spoke about. What we talked about today is be active. What you need to do to take care of such crises in future. So yep, that's it for my presentation. Are there any questions, anything I can clarify?
Yeah, Marcus, would you be sharing this slides